great delight to be here. What we plan to do, insofar as we have a plan, and in fact we have a sort of a plan, Lars Hawken and myself, the great translator, I'm delighted that we've had a relationship now for more than 20 years, and the one thing I know from my experience in attempting to translate myself is that it's absolutely feasible for a translator to make much better poems than were ever there in the so-called originals. And I'm certain that that is the case on this occasion, as you'll hear. So Lars Hawken will be joining me in a moment or two to read some Swedish versions of these poems. My apologies that I don't speak Swedish. I'm sorry not to be able to do that. My English is sort of so-so, I have to say, also. In any case, I'll begin with, and that's partly that I feel I am still finding my way around. I come from the north of Ireland, and I was brought up in a little parish in County Armagh, which was predominantly Catholic. And I went to the local grade school or primary school. I pretty much had to go to school because my mother was one of the school teachers, so it would have been difficult for me to get out of it in the morning. She went out, I went with her. There were, however, students, or scholars, as they were known, who seemed to have made other arrangements and very rarely showed up. And this is a little attempt at a portrait of one of those. His name, his full name, is Joseph Mary Plunkett Ward. But that first component of his name, Joseph Mary Plunkett, many of you will recognize as the name of an Irish patriot who took part in the 1916 Rising in Dublin and who was shot for his part in it. So his name is charged. It's like a little potted history of his political, his political background, and as it turns out, some of his political ambitions. So, and indeed the title of the poem is a Gaelic word, anshaw. One of the reasons why I think I have this problem with English is that I used to be much better at Irish, certainly, than I am at English, ever was at English. Anyway, here we go. I'll read this and then we'll hear a version of it, just to give you some sense of, I know your English is, in so many cases, better than mine. Lars Hawken will have a run at it then himself. So, anshaw. When the master was calling the roll at the primary school in College Lands, you were meant to call back anshaw and raised your hand as your name occurred. Anshaw meaning here, here and now, all present and correct, was the first word of Irish I spoke. The last name on the ledger belonged to Joseph Mary Plunkett Ward and was followed, as often as not, by silence, knowing looks, a nod and a wink, the master's droll, and where's our little ward of court? I remember the first time he came back, the master had sent him out along the hedges to weigh up for himself and cut a stick with which he would be beaten. After a while, nothing was spoken. He would arrive, as a matter of course, with an ash plant, a sally rod, or finally the hazel wand he had whittled down to a whiplash. Its twist of red and yellow lacquers, sanded and polished, and altogether so delicately wrought that he had engraved his initials on it. I last met Joseph Mary Plunkett Ward in a pub just over the Irish border. He was living in the open, in a secret camp on the other side of the mountain. He was fighting for Ireland, making things happen. And he told me, Joe Ward, of how he had risen through the ranks to quartermaster, commandant. How every morning at parade his volunteers would call back Anshaw and raise their hands as their names occurred. And now Lars Houghton is going to